My name's Jason Bailey. Most people know me as Art Gnome. I've got a blog called artgnome.com where I wrote a lot about the early blockchain and art movement, which we now call NFTs. Most recently, I started a company called Club NFT because as a collector, I've been excited about the fast growth of NFTs in the space, but I realize there are a lot of core fundamental problems around protecting collectors that aren't solved yet. So that's really our focus, starting with giving people the ability to download the assets tied to their NFTs locally so they don't have to depend on anyone else to make sure they can sort of keep their NFTs and not worry about losing value. I think one of the questions that comes up is, how do I display these NFTs? So people have bought over like $10 billion worth of NFTs this year, and they're not necessarily sure like how to show it. I think we're at this weird, awkward like teenage years where people are like taking their digital art and like sticking it on a wall because that's what they used to do with their traditional art. I've always said, like, I look at any random wall in my house, an average of like 4 seconds a week or whatever. Like, that's not where my eyes are. My eyes are on my cell phone and my laptop or my television. So I want my art where my eyes are. And that's actually what's pretty cool about digital art. Like, it's being made on screens and that's where my eyes are. So it's easy to consume it there. You know, there is a market for these like new devices that are trying to bridge this gap from people thinking art is something you hang on a wall. But I think we'll get over that actually pretty quickly, and people will realize they've already got plenty of screens in their life, and that's a perfectly good way to consume it. So there's actually a long history of digital art and generative art being like wholesale rejected by the traditional art world, going back to like the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. Where that comes from is this innate fear that humans have of technology. So when computers were these things that like filled whole rooms and people didn't have them at home, there, you know, you see these sci-fi movies from that era where like computers take over and destroy everything, and you think, oh, we've come so far, like, you know, we don't think that way anymore. But most people feel that way about AI and ML, and so artificial intelligence and machine learning. And I think, again, it's always whenever there's technology that we don't understand, we fear it. So the good news is we've got this sort of digitally native audience that grew up with the idea of owning things digitally and just being very comfortable with living in a digital universe. So for them, it's actually not only acceptable, it's actually preferred, right? So we're seeing a very rapid, just in the last 5-10 years, a very rapid shift from people that don't necessarily want to drag a bunch of paintings every time they move from one place to the other, right? They're happy and content and maybe even prefer collecting the digital version of the artwork.